How we doing this week, Dan?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
We're doing well. We've been reacting to your comps for some of these top quarterbacks in the draft, and I found it interesting. And you tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth and representing you accurately. You compared Jaden Daniels to C.J. Stroud. You compared Drake Maye to Josh Allen, Ben Roethlisberger. Why the comps, and which prospect do you like better, assuming Caleb Williams goes 1?
Yeah, so with Jaden Daniels, and I haven't really watched a ton of these guys yet. I've called a couple of their games, so this is very early on in the process. For Jaden, when I said CJ, it was more twofold in relation to just some of the traits, not necessarily the player in and of itself. One, as much as I've seen so far, he's probably the best pocket passer in the draft, just dude who can absolutely stroke it from the pocket. I think Penix is going to be in that conversation as well from Washington, but just when it comes to standing in the pocket, just like CJ was, and just pure passing with the touch throws, with the throwing guys to open windows and the placement of the ball. From what I've seen so far, Jaden reminds me of CJ in that regard, and then his throwing motion. I've said this for years. I'm always a big natural throwing motion a person. I've long thought you watch guys throw. It either some people were the kid that picked up the ball when they were 1.5, 2 years old and they threw it, and everyone said, well, you don't look like everybody else. So I think he's got a very natural and tight throwing motion like CJ. So that was that in regards. And then for Drake, Big Ben, I've said Big Ben since I called Drake's, I think, second game in college football maybe. He is mountain of a man, 6'4", 230. He's going to be 245, 250 by the time he gets to the NFL and plays. Freak athlete, creative playmaker, difficult to bring down, very raw talent, but has played a ton of snaps, just like Ben did in college.
So when you say he's a raw talent, but he's played a ton of snaps in college, how do you compute those two? Like, when you say raw, I feel like when people say raw, it's a nice way of saying there's some rough edges that need to be sanded out here at the pro level. So what does that mean?
Yeah, that's accurate. I say the best thing that Patrick Mahomes' parents ever did for him was not get him private coaching. You could tell Patrick just had this very raw talent where it was, if you took the person out of the game and just put them in someone's backyard, they look the same, when they're playing just pickup football. So it's more of like a mechanic reference, Patrick mechanical reference. Patrick was not mechanically sound in much of a way coming out of school, but just had this incredible ability to have, physical, like space feel, arm angle, back foot, the throwing motion and the movements were very just God-given, and Drake has that. There are mechanical flaws. He's sloppy with his mechanics at times, just like Patrick was, and just like Josh Allen was, and just like Big Ben was. There's sometimes of hey, I want you to just throw the ball like the guy, no one's around you, rather than feeling you have to, turn your hip open and sidearm slingshot at things. So when I say raw talent, it's more of a positive reference, but understanding when you take a guy that high and you expect him to be a superstar, you are going to have to clean some of that up eventually as his career gets going.
Refresh my memory. You're big on a quarterback sitting in year one, correct?
I always say, if they have a skill and or trait or multiple that allow them to survive, you play them, and then you hope that skill and or trait allows them to thrive. Now, the situation is always different. If that person is mentally capable of going out there and getting their teeth kicked in on a weekly basis and failing and it not negatively impacting them, I do think there's benefits to it. I've also watched for 25 years and seen what Green Bay has done, and I think there's a lot of credence to that. So, I watch obviously Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, so I think there are benefits, on either side.
So, are any of these guys ready to play year one? And when I say these guys, really the top three: Williams, Maye, and Jaden Daniels. Who's ready to play year one, if any of them, in your view?
Probably Caleb because of his creativity. It's playing quarterback as a rookie in the NFL is like being a parent. no one's ever ready, but the baby's coming, dude. So you better figure it out. And that's, everyone's had kids, or most people have. Hey, here you've been here for 18 hours. Now you go home. So, you're never ready. That's why I say you got to have a skill or a trait that allow you to survive, because you're just trying to stay afloat as a young kid. And so Caleb's got some jaw-dropping, outstanding, creative playmaking talent that is pretty unique and it'll allow him to survive. But a lot of guys struggle. Obviously, CJ's an anomaly in many ways. So, it's all. What's been lost in C.J. Stroud in Houston is like his offensive line was awesome this year. So if you got a really good offensive line, Dak Prescott, 2016 Cowboys, play him.
Okay, well, the Patriots don't have any tackles right now signed to the roster, so they're off to a good start.
Is that a bad thing?
So your colleague at ESPN, Mel Kiper, he had his mock draft that sent a lot of waves through at least the media around us yesterday, because he had Jaden Daniels going to number 2 and then Drake Maye down at 3. What do you attribute Jaden Daniels' climb to, outside of obviously him being the Heisman winner?
Yeah, I think number one, there's a great appreciation in the NFL for what the SEC conference is, and that's across the board at any position. But when you go play quarterback in that conference and you play the way that he did, I'm the best player on the field every single week feeling, that stands out to NFL guys. And I think once he settled in with some of the talent that was around him and the way that he played, they would have been in the college football playoff if not for their defense just being awful this year. And so I think the appreciation for the way that he went and played and produced, the physical talent that he has. He is a 6'4", 210-pound, very wiry athlete. I think once you will pop on his tape, like everyone, I promise you, this is what you're going to hear. Everyone's going to go, wow, I didn't know he was that good of a thrower. And it was a little bit like that with Lamar coming out of college. And I think you're going to hear that a lot with Jaden is, while you see the the really electrifying run-around athletic plays, he is going to shock people with how good of a thrower of the football he is.
Before we let you go, we got to get in our requisite Bill Belichick question. Last week when we talked to you, it seemed like Atlanta was a done deal. Right now, they're, at least on the outside looking in, you tell us, appears to be a holdup. What is the holdup and the hesitation it feels with Bill in Atlanta and the league in general? He's had 2 interviews. They were both with the Falcons, nobody else.
Yeah, I feel like it's really what I've said since the jump of this. It's Coach Belichick. So obviously he commands that type of thought process about him. One, how much power does he actually want when it comes to shaping the roster, both decision-making, draft, free agency, final say, and how much is a team willing to give up of that? That's a massive part of that. And then 2, who's his offensive coordinator?
Probably McDaniels.
Okay, but we don't know that. At least I haven't heard that, so I don't know publicly if that's been shared. And so, if Josh McDaniels is his offensive coordinator, maybe teams are like, well, we don't want that. I watched that offense in Las Vegas perform better after he got fired. So, there's a lot of tentacles that are attached to that. So maybe it's, hey, we want you. We don't want Josh McDaniels. Maybe we want something newer and fresher. Or, hey, we're going to trade for this quarterback, and this is the system we need. So I think those are 2 huge questions that have been at the forefront of this, and I don't know if they've been answered.
All right, he is Dan Orlovsky of ESPN. He joins us every Wednesday here on Jones and Mego on WEEI. Check out his work on ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan Orlovsky7. Dan, we appreciate the time. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Dan Orlovsky, as all our guests on the Harbor One Hotline.